I got a 2015. It's a 2017 Dodge Ram 1500. It's got a Pentastar in there. It's a lot I gotta say about this that I've repaired on it, but basically I did the oil filter adapter housing, or oil filter housing and cooler, and because it was leaking really bad, and there's some remnants still down here where I cleaned the top of the engine after the replacement, because it was obvious he had some oil control solenoid problems. So right now I'm in the midst of pulling the pan down, drain the oil down. I'm gonna do that. Replace the oil pump. I have a milling oil pump. Was brand new. So I just need to see if I can remedy this oil pressure issue. And I'll give a lot more details at the end. But right now, since I figure I'll document what I can as far as where I am now, and explain the diagnosis on the latter part of the video. So mainly I want to get this pulled down, see what it looks like on the inside, and I'll give more detail about what happened after we get the oil pump replaced and look at some PID data. Hopefully it's pretty detailed, but it's I need to see if this pickup has sludge buildup or either metal. It runs fine, doesn't knock, doesn't do anything. It's just the oil pressure is failing. This is a 2-stage oil pump, and it reminds me of the Chevy's a 2.5 because this also has a solenoid that regulates the oil pressure instead of the old mechanical. Was nothing wrong with it, so that solenoid probably failed. There's service bulletins in regards to the oil ring failing, so we'll look for that. We'll see if there's any sludge buildup in this pan, metal, and the oil pump's just simply going to be replaced. So we'll let the oil drain. We'll go from there. Those some 10mm bolts around the pan I just pulled out. Didn't take but like a couple minutes to zip them out. I got one bolt, one nut holding the pan in place. That has a stud. And I'm just trying to find a good spot I can get this pan crack. There we go. Okay. Hopefully don't make a mess. I got all the oil drained out as I could. What kind of glue they got on here? I know I got all of them. I imagine. Yeah. Work around. Damn, there's some show enough glue on here, I'll tell you that. There we go. Oh shit. So I was pushing up while pulling down simultaneously. This is some strong glue. You definitely want to make sure that pan is all the way out of oil. Uh-oh. Oh wow, that is horrible. That is absolutely horrible. That is horrible. Golly. That. Let's look at this pickup. This pickup has to have a lot of sludge in there. Oh shit. Hold on. This camera might fall over. Look at all that sludge. That is crazy. gosh. There's our pickup. There's the problem. I mean, I probably could just clean the strainer and probably may correct this oil pressure problem. But my goodness, that'll do it. Here's the other side. I'm just trying to think of a game plan here. Now, obviously, it's the best thing to do is just replace the oil pump, but this is, man, this will definitely cause some oil pressure problems. I mean, I will have to clean this off anyway because the new pump doesn't come with the strainer. That is a lot of sludge. Yeah. This really answers my question. That is crazy. I don't care what kind of BMG cleaner you got, it ain't gonna fix this. And what I might do is just, it might be worth just to try clean the oil pump. I mean, pick up the strainer here and see if it restores oil pressure. Because I can't imagine the oil pump failing, but I don't know much about this. But more than likely, I'm just going to replace this. I got to get that line up there at the back of the engine. I think that's what is usually pretty difficult. I want to stop filming because my phone is over the oil and I don't want to drop it. All right, here's the pan. There's a lot of metal in here. One thing I'm not sure of is if the metal came from the oil pan or lifter or something. Obviously, in most cases, it usually come from like bearing material. But I mean, I don't know too much about this engine. But again, there's no knocking, anything like that, and it runs fine. So I don't know if the main journals were bad. I will add, when I got this vehicle, because of the oil leak, it was so bad it had no oil in it. But again, there was no knocking. It ran so smooth. I took it on a test drive after I finished the repair. No issues or anything. Nothing. And that's why I'm like kind of shocked this happened. But it definitely threw me for a loop. So I'm pretty confident once I get this oil pump in here, especially fix that strainer, it should run fine. But this engine is definitely damaged. No doubt about that it's damaged. Golly. So I got some brake cleaner. I shot that up in the base of the block in where I'm working around, and I'm gonna try to get some of the sludge out. I can't guarantee that I'm gonna get all that sludge out. It's a mess. It's a mess up there. Let me see what I can do. All right, I had to take the sub assembly down. It was 13 millimeter bolts, 2 10s up here. And it's a little cubby hole between the and the bell housing. So you have to get those two. And here we are. So the 15 was down here, 2 10s and 13s all around here. Wasn't that bad at all. Took 3 minutes, and the dipstick just fell right on out. So this is the sludge here. You can see that. I'm gonna try to clean that out the best I can. This is the update. I got the pump installed, and like I said, I got as much sludge out as I can. It looked a lot better. Got the pickup cleaned up. Looks a lot better. I thought about buying a new one, but I just kept putting brake cleaner in there and taking a pick, and I was able to get. I got the small one I can get well up in there. It just kept breaking it up, going in a circular motion, and just kept rinsing and repeating. Use some compressed air. Here we are. Now the milling pump didn't come with any bolt holes, so I can't reuse the cover it came with, like the old one. So it's gonna be fine. Let me get this lower pan installed, get it filled with oil. It should be fine. All right, I got everything done. The vehicle has oil in it, the pan's clean, everything, we're good. So now I just gotta start up. It's either gonna work and eventually break, or just not work at all. But something's gonna work. Something's gonna happen. So I'm gonna log in. I'm gonna capture the initial startup just in case I screw something up. Everybody can witness that. And in the meantime, I'm gonna pull up the PID data for the oil pump, and I can immediately come back and monitor that, and while the vehicle's running, and we can look at it together. So let me get logged in here. Let me get it started up, and we'll look at the data info. What's crazy is check the before. Now I didn't mention the oil pressure used to be maxed at 40 psi. The oil pressure is 100 psi now. That's a hell of a difference. This is fixed. I'm gonna let it run for a while, and we'll go over some information. But you know, I guess what better time than right now? Let me see here. We can look at the oil pressure while it's running. I can give you some insight of what I had going on. So let me start by saying this. When I looked at some information on Identifix, some of the one of the tech stated that the oil pressure the oil has to be 5W20. It is allegedly the vehicle is very specific. This engine is very specific when it comes to oil. I'm gonna tell you that's straight BS. Let me explain. Because the vehicle can monitor its oil pressure based off of what it sees through the oil pressure sensor here. Now, if it's not producing oil pressure, yes, in a way, thinner oil would have helped, because what we saw was a stopped up pickup tube. That oil, 520 will be capable of bypassing that a lot easier than the 530 I got in there. Okay, logically. However, no oil should make any type of difference as far as normal running conditions, for normal driving conditions. Okay, now this is just general. We're not talking about VVT or anything, but as far as what the issue I had going on with this vehicle, let me show you the codes, because I did take a snapshot of that. These were the codes that were present in the vehicle right here. Had a P0521, P1524, P06DD is in Delta. All right, so the engine oil pressure sensor performance, oil pressure out of range, engine oil pressure circuit stuck off. Now, it can imagine it being stuck off simply because it didn't see any oil pressure. It didn't see any oil pressure because that pickup tube was obstructed. That was our problem. So the metal, you can hear the engine's running fine right now. Yeah, and this is the filter that came with the Dorman oil filter adapter that I replaced, and let me tell you, it was a mess, man. It was a pure mess. I should have some photos in my phone here, and I should be able to show you as I'm talking. But this was the Dorman oil filter, I want to say, that I pulled out originally. I think, wait, give me 1 second. All right, I take that back, because I have another oil filter here. This is because I replaced it with a Wix. This was the Dorman filter, because this looked a hell of a lot cleaner. This was the old one that I pulled out when I originally replaced it, and replaced it with the Dorman. This came with the Dorman one. Now you can see some of the metal shavings in there. You see the flakes. There's one right there. And it was a lot more obvious. I could see it. I don't know if the camera detail picks all them flakes up, but I can see metal flakes in here. So I had signs of metal flakes in the oil filter. I put a new oil filter in it, and it helped a little bit, but we know for a fact when I pulled that pan down, our primary problem was simply an obstruction. And if it was my car, I probably would have tried just cleaning the strainer, But it was pretty difficult cleaning that strainer, especially what was in there. Let me show you what I used. There's a technical name for this, but it's like a dental pick when they clean your teeth with. Don't ask me how I got this, but I had it for years. And it flexes, so I was able to get up in there and move it around over that grate, the strainer, and break up those little small pieces. I didn't use the tip. That don't sound right, but I did get up in there and kept mushing it around with brake cleaner, and kept breaking it down to the point where it was easy to deal with. Currently, our oil pressure is at 80 psi, dropping to 79, which is freaking phenomenal in comparison to what it was before. So I went over what I had originally. Again, it was a bad oil leak. It was coolant and oil all in the cavity or in the lifter valley. It was a mess. Replaced it. I test drive everything I fixed. Everything was fine. The oil pressure was reasonable. Didn't have any lights or anything. Drove it 10 miles. Called the customer, gave it back to him, picked up the next day, and then we had some problems. Now I will say this, the problems came because the next day I had wound up changing the oil. All right, I added oil in there originally, which was the still 5W30, because I had to put so much oil in there. I was like, well, screw it. I put like 5+ quarts in there. It was, because the car didn't have any oil, and when I drove it around with that oil, everything was fine. Wound up, changed the oil the next day, new oil, new filter. Then we started having problems. So, well, the same filter that was in there, truth be told. So I did have that same, if you want to call it a bad oil filter, it still looked great. You saw how it looked. It wasn't any problems. The filter looked really good. So, changed the oil the next day when they came pick it up. Then it started having problems. But again, and now that we pull everything down, the obvious problem was that obstruction. So, and like I said, I find it BS that they say you can't put different viscosities of oil in here. If you can't put a slightly heavier weight, then obviously there's something wrong with the strainer. When I was pulling that the sub-assembly out, one thing I noticed, I don't know if this guy bought this truck brand new, it's a commercial vehicle. One thing I'm thinking is that because of all those diverted, like the structure, I guess they have those braces inside the sub-assembly to help with the structural integrity, and I think that right there probably inhibits flow of the oil, which will cause it to collect and build up sludge. So that's just my assumption. I'm gonna let this run for 10-15 minutes. We'll go ahead and take it on a test drive now and burn some of that oil off that I've used to pull the exhaust down, and we'll be back. I just got back a little while ago. I need to put some air in the tire. So here are the values now. I went on a 7-mile drive. This is what we got. Now, I did monitor oil pressure. At times, it did reach up to about 70 psi, around 4,000 RPM. This car's running a lot better. No knocking noise, no anything. So I think he's in good shape. The only thing I know if it's gonna last or not, after as time tell. But I did suggest that he change the oil like in the next month or so. Just like 30 days, something like prematurely. So it'll help get if any of that sludge broke up and got in the oil filter, it'll help. But I still got the 530 in there. It runs great. At idle, we're at 800 RPM, somewhere around about that, making 31 psi. We're good. Truck's good. Truck's in good shape. The repair went smooth. The only thing is, it's just like getting that electrical connector out the back of the block. That was the only, I'm gonna be honest, that's the hard part. As far as repairing, not repairing, but removal of the sub assembly of the oil pan, everything was accessible with the impact gun, no problems. So I would use a 15 and 13, zip them out, pry bar, got the sub assembly down, and start easily pulling the oil pump out. And there was two 410mm bolts and I want to say a T45 to get the gear for the oil pump drive. It was easy. It was easy. I used a Allen key, like a longer L shape, to lock in the tensioner when I did install it. So just be mindful of that, like a grenade pin. So when you put the tensioner back, went smooth. But if anything happened, I'll definitely update. Hit that link, subscribe to the channel, stay informed, how to reach on my work. See you on the next one.